Hello again, everyone. You're joining us for another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. My name is Jeff Mix. I'm head of content and research. My guest today is Bart Talloen. Those of you who have been following this podcast for a while may remember Bart was one of our very first interviews years ago. And this time last year, we did an interview in anticipation of last year's Names Manufacturing. Mm-hmm. But this is the first time Bart and I have actually got to sit down in the chairs and do this in person. So I'm so excited for this. Bart, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome, Jeff. Yeah.
Having mentioned previous episodes, I suppose people who are familiar with you would probably remember you have built a really interesting and fascinating career at Johnson & Johnson in supply chain and manufacturing. You have a lot of wisdom and advice that you've shared with us in those sectors over the years. And I understand you're starting an exciting new chapter, so maybe we can start there. What are you doing now?
So, yeah, Jeff, it's true. I started a new chapter of my career in the sense that I retired from Johnson & Johnson, and in this new chapter I kind of want to do different things. I've had a very busy business life, and 28 years at J&J, and I enjoyed it a lot, traveling around the globe, being in different businesses, operations, supply chain, strategic roles. But in this new chapter, I would say the first priority will be the family, right, and spend more time with my wife, traveling the world, because we enjoy traveling, but we haven't done that too much lately due to the business at work. Second, I want to spend even more time on my workouts. So as some of you know, we've talked about that as well. I'm a very fanatic in workout, and particularly chin-ups and push-ups. I have my own bar challenge competition around that we organize yearly, and then in support of the YMCA to give back to the community. So I want to grow that and also keep working on my personal fitness and wellness. But obviously, third, I will stay professionally active, but I would say more deliberate in what companies I work for, what I do, and with whom I do that. And so the purpose of organizations I work with will be important. And obviously the work I will do will be in the sphere of supply chain and advanced manufacturing technology innovation, because that's where my passion is. And in that regard, I'm exploring a number of things, advisory roles, consulting, external speaking like Names. I hope we can continue that engagement. But from another, one of the opportunities that had materialized in the meantime is that I'm now an executive fellow for the World Economic Forum for the Advanced Manufacturing and Value Chain and Supply Chain Center. It has been a center I have been engaged with since 2018, when actually the center was started at the start of Industry 4.0 deployments in manufacturing. And it has been an exciting journey how that has grown, particularly I would say the Global Lighthouse Network. So a lighthouse is basically a company, a site, a value chain that the World Economic Forum recognizes as a leading example, excellence in I 4.0 technology deployment and scaling. And in the meantime, it's a community of about 80 companies across, based in 30 countries, over 20 industries. And the collaboration is kind of unique, and the progress we made is pretty interesting. So I definitely, when I was asked if I wanted to continue to contribute in that, I definitely was very interested, because I want to continue to shape that landscape, and particularly that Global Lighthouse Network for the future. So that's kind of the core scope of my role as Executive Fellow. And we all know, right, transformation in manufacturing has started, is ongoing, and will continue. Particularly, I would say, since COVID, there has been huge transformational shifts. And there's kind of 5 priorities that with the World Economic Forum we're focusing on. The first one, I've listed them, and then I'll elaborate a bit on each of them. The first one is technology innovation, obviously, Industry 4.0. The second one is what is called human-centric supply chains. The third one is resilient value chains, resiliency. Of course, sustainability and end-to-end collaboration. So from a technology innovation perspective, for me, there are 2 major impacts that technology innovation has had and is having on manufacturing. First, I would say it's enabled new ways of working that we couldn't do before, right? So if you look at a couple of examples, what is enabled by AR and VR, and particularly again with COVID, a huge boost in application of those technologies, for example, for virtual assistants. So maintenance and engineering activities can be guided from a distance. The engineers and the mechanics don't have to be physically in the site anymore. They can guide the personnel of from a remote location. Digital twins have really transformed our ability for simulation and modeling. Transformed product development, transformed technology transfers from R&D into production, and transformed process optimizations. There is obviously AI and how that is transforming the workplace and the shop floor. And also I would say the human-machine interaction is becoming truly a collaboration, right? Humans interact through HMIs, wearables with machines, and vice versa. Robots work together at the same work centers with humans. That's why we call them cobots, right? Collaborative robots. And all the safety aspects of that are now up to a point that it is indeed safe for humans to work next to robots on the same work center. So a huge transformation and a huge different way of working all around in manufacturing. And Gen AI will give a next boost to all of that, right? But the second big impact, I would say, technology innovation has had on manufacturing is that it enabled manufacturing to really move from being perceived as a cost center that is there to manufacture products and ship to the customers to become a business enabler, and that clearly was very clear in the COVID times, the importance of supply and what manufacturing meant to the business. But even now more, with the further, I would say, maturity and deployment of I 4.0, we really have an opportunity in manufacturing to become not only a business enabler, but a business transformer. Because the impact of technology innovation goes way beyond manufacturing. Previous technology improvements and automations were all around cost improvements, productivity, right, quality improvements. Now, the major impact of all of that is customer and business facing, right? Profitability, time to market, speed to market, agility, customization on demand. And really has led in a lot of cases to new business models. If you look, for example, at 3D printing, how that can enable personalization. And in healthcare, it's a huge deal, and it leads to a totally different operating model between manufacturers and hospitals. The second one is human centricity, and there, obviously, that one component is the workforce. I talked about already how the workforce is augmented and now connected digitally, enabled by all these tools and digital tools and capabilities. But also, there's a generational shift, right? We have Gen Z, has different, I would say, as the upcoming generation has definitely different expectations and needs. And for example, from a work perspective, they're much more focused on working for purpose-driven organizations. They're much more focused on sustainability and the planet. They also look different to work itself, right? Work-life balance. They clearly have boundaries, right? More clearer boundaries than we in the past on how long we work, when we work. And they require more flexibility, so they're more into virtual work and remote work. But secondly, that human centricity also means focus on the customer. So I think in nowadays, part of the transformation is that we need to put the customer more in the center, and that manufacturing need to be more positioned in service of the business and the customer, right? Because at the end, that determines what we do, and will also determine which technology innovations we apply where to drive most impact and where we can make a difference for the business and the customer. Resilience is another one that with COVID became a very important supply chain capability. And it was I saw it as an evolution from the older risk management, business continuity planning capabilities, but it's a whole different ballgame in the sense that risk now is not a singular event. We really need to look at it as multidimensional. There is geopolitical risk. Yes, there is still that operational risk. There is cyber risk. There is climate. There are trade border challenges with some countries. So risk is multidimensional, and what we see the past couple of years, risk more and more happens a number of risks happen at the same time and lead to big disruptions. Where in the past it was more separate, and you have one big thing happening, you could catch up and recover, and then you had the next thing. Now, remember we had the COVID pandemic happening, we had big waves of inflation, labor shortage, we had a couple of big floods and climate disruptions all at the same time, basically, in 2020-21. And then we had the wars, right, on top of that, coming out of COVID. So it's continuous wave of disruptions. So for supply chain, resiliency is a core capability for the future. So the question is, how can we be more proactive addressing those risks to minimize supply disruption? And here, digital also has helped us a lot to be able to, again, model and simulate our value chains and pinpoint where the risks are, when they can happen, and then, bring the right mitigation actions in place to address those risks. And this, can be from a supplier perspective for materials, dual sourcing, right? So in a lot of cases, still in supply chain, we are dependent for certain materials on one supplier, sometimes in one location, which makes it very vulnerable. So that dual sourcing has become an important focus over the past couple of years. Also where not only different companies, but also different locations. So the geographical diversity of sourcing has become important, also as part of the reshoring, and like getting less dependent on China, for example, from a sourcing perspective, is for a lot of European and US-based companies an important consideration. But from a manufacturing perspective, dual capacities, right? Similar has different plants with similar capacities. So at some point, for example, when I was referring to the flooding in Europe in 21, we had a plant that was heavily impacted, but we could quickly pivot a plant in France to do the same activities, and so to minimize impact on supply for the German market. Also your workforce. So I think multi-skilling of our workforce enables that your workforce is versatile and can help mitigate some of labor shortage or some of these related risks. So there's inventory, where you place your inventory in your supply chain. So there's different ways how you can mitigate risks, but first you need to have the visibility. It's never 100% sure, but at least we have now tools that give us better predictability on that. So first you need to have that visibility and predictability, and then you can bring the right corrective actions in place so that you're prepared when it happens. Sustainability, also here I think big changes from the times of, we're making commitments, we have kind of the lip service and the pledges, to becoming more focused on being compliant with current and future regulations. To a lot of companies now are really leading and driving sustainable transformations in the space. For example, Scope 3, when we talk about carbon emission reduction, is now a big focus of a lot of companies. Not only look within your own tent, but with your suppliers. Of course, recycling keeps being important. Plastics keep being a key topic to work on. Water, I think, is another topic, because a lot of industries are dependent on pure high quality water, and only 3% of the water on earth is of that high quality. So these are really important challenges that directly impact manufacturing and supply of critical products, right? Starting with pharmaceuticals. Circular economy, right? How you build that circular economy to recycle materials with suppliers and customers, I think, is another business model that a lot of companies are implementing. And last but not least, another big imperative is end-to-end collaboration. So we're in a world now where supply chain is not longer a linear, sequential, product-based flow, right? From I source my materials, I manufacture the product, and I ship it to the customer. Supply chains now are really connected supply chains and are networks, because there are multiple players in the game. And so that network model really drives much stronger collaboration across, from the supplier base through your organization, through the customers, but also the partners are much tighter intertwined with the operations, technology providers, suppliers, even other companies, right? There's a lot of cross-sector collaborations now, academia even. So collaboration is being looked at in the broadest terms, with academia, with consortia, with other industries, with technology providers, with suppliers, with customers, because that connectivity with the customer is something that needs more attention. And a lot of organizations still, my role stops when the product leaves the dock of my warehouse. At the end, no, we're responsible till the product is on the shelf, right? Till the product is in the hospital, even in the surgery room, right? So looking beyond your own boundaries, upstream and downstream, is a key element of that collaboration as well. So I quite elaborated on those 5 big transformations, but that's kind of the 5 things that as a World Economic Forum, and the World Economic Forum really want to build a better world, and is that their mission is basically to bring industry, economies, and academia together around those global problems and try to solve them in a collaborative way across those 3 ecosystems. And so the same for those 5 prioritized areas for advanced manufacturing and supply chain, same thing. So it is economies, industry, and academia, and tech providers in this case, that work together along those 5 areas. My involvement with the World Economic Forum in that regard is really focused on 3 areas.
I was actually going to ask, as an executive fellow, where are you fitting into these 5?
So within that broad spectrum, I'm focusing on 3 things to contribute and help, right, and advise. One is in the technology innovation space with the Global Lighthouse Network. So at the moment, as I said, we have a community of 80 organizations, companies, making huge progress, but there's still a lot to be done. I think we need to still make more strides in bringing the community together and working together, peer-to-peer, sharing use cases and learn from each other to move faster together. I think there's also an opportunity for SMEs to bring them more into the fold, those small and medium-sized organizations, and then really, continue to tighten up the collaboration between companies, academia, and tech providers, and also the cross-sector collaborations has still a lot of more opportunities, I believe. So we're never done. It's a journey, but it's exciting to see the progress and the opportunity, right? So initially, the lighthouses were focused from a technology deployment perspective within the 4 walls of the plant in 2018 when it started. In 2020-21, with COVID, we started looking more at end-to-end value chains. So within supply chain, plant, source, make, deliver, but then also into suppliers and into the customer base. So not only end-to-end supply chain, but end-to-end value chains. And then in 22, we started also recognizing lighthouses, particularly for sustainability efforts, application of technology innovation in sustainability. So, and we are looking actually now at continue to expand that lens and impact of that digitalization. So for example, tying it back to the second priority, the work of the future. And that's a second area where I am involved, and it's just starting. How does that work of the future look like, right? And how do we shape that? And what are the challenges? Because there are indeed a number of challenges as I laid out initially, right? So the augmented connected worker with all these technologies, the different expectations. Also the labor market, demand and supply. So in certain countries there are dynamics in that regard. And also from a acquisition perspective, because the big challenges from a labor and a talent perspective are in acquisition of labor, right, attraction and skilling. And from an attraction perspective, there are still a number of areas where we have shortage of labor and that need to be addressed. And that's something that we will look to collaborate more strongly with academia, right, to address that. What are alternative programs to accelerate filling that gap? So a very interesting space, fits perfectly with my passion for talent. So that's why I definitely in the discussions we said that's a space where I can and will contribute. And the third one is operating systems. So we had the discussions recently with kind of the some of the leading lighthouse companies, is that we need to tie better the technology innovation journey with the operating system journey, right? All companies have in some way an operating system, a way of working, more or less standardized, and around the same principles, but that has evolved. It started with the quality days in the 80s, then we have the business process engineering in the 90s, the lean days, in the mid 90s, right, with Six Sigma. So every company has typically a history of evolution of operating systems along kind of the changes in the business. And now with technology, some have adjusted their operating systems, some not yet, some are struggling with that. And it has become very clear when we talked about the pilot purgatory in the presentation earlier this week, why are a lot of companies stuck in that? One of the reasons is that the operating system is not fit for purpose, is not fit to take those technology innovations being tested and ready to scale to support the scaling. So, given the importance of your operating system to deploy and scale technologies fast and in the right way and consistently across a network of plants, a network of supply chain, that's why we're going to start now also as an initiative with the World Economic Forum under that umbrella around the future operating system in support of the technology innovation. And these are the three things I'm involved in and actively contributing. And actually, I believe there is a huge opportunity to bring these three things together, right? The technology innovation space, the people, and then the way we work, the methodologies, the principles, the standards. So
they're all interconnected anyway.
They're very interconnected, and we need to make them even more interconnected while we move forward. So that's kind of a bit of scope where I will contribute. I'm very excited about that. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I can see the passion. Are you going to be coordinating within these 80 companies? Are you a spokesperson for what they're doing to the outside world? Are you doing a little of both?
It will be a little of both, right? So I actually, let's say, for the work teams specifically, so let's say I will be directly part of the strategic team around shaping the future of the Global Lighthouse Network with a representation of that network. So there are community meetings where all the companies are present, the 80 companies. And also in the community meetings, there is a broader community from manufacturing that can participate. But then we also have kind of what is called more private closed-door meetings with a subset of that lighthouse community, kind of the leading companies. When I said we had 10 companies with more than 5 lighthouses, 15 with between 1 and 5. So it's kind of this 10, 15 leading companies. We have private meetings where we share in detail what we do and really actively shape this agenda further for the future. So in those sessions, I will play an active part and even facilitate some of these discussions. But then, like for the workforce, for example, of the future work stream, I am advising and guiding the team. And in some of the workshops, the critical workshops, again, I play also an active role in facilitating and guiding. My primary role, the same for the operating system, is there in those two work streams. It's primarily advising, guiding, and reviewing with the team, kind of along milestone dates where we are and how to kind of move it forward and bring it to implementation to drive, ultimately impact, right? And the other thing will be how we keep these three things interconnected versus three separate, I would say, initiatives.
It sounds really exciting, and I know you're sort of at the start of a new journey.
Right.
For people who want to keep track of, get updates, learn more about this, maybe see where you are in all of this, what is the best way for them to reference what's going on?
In our presentation, we shared a link where people can go to and get more insight in that, advanced manufacturing and supply chain work. So that's definitely a place to go. I would say that would be probably the
starting place, yeah.
Starting place to go. And look, people that are interested can always reach out to me and can get contacts through you, right? I'm always open to have those conversations and help people along the journey.
Well, Bart, I really could talk about this all day. I think it's a really exciting next chapter that you have coming for yourself.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it. In the meantime, If there was something you wanted us to take away and think about a little further, is there something you want to highlight for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to me, what makes me excited and what should make everybody in the manufacturing community excited is the opportunity we have, right? So there isn't a better moment, I think, in time to be in manufacturing than today, because the opportunity we have with technology innovation, how we can leverage technology innovation to enable, and not only enable, but transform customer and business impact is enormous. And I think that should excite all of us. It's a huge opportunity, it's a huge responsibility, but the impact we can make for the customer, as I was saying, the speed to market, get products to the customers faster than ever, to get to true customization, what they want, when they want it, where they want it, an on-demand, right, Amazon type of experience for everything, and and the impact for society even, right, the impact on sustainability, for example, on workforce. The other thing I would say as a takeaway is, at the end, it's all about people. So let's never forget that. We should stay very, very, very focused on our employees and our customers. And when we do that, if we do what the employees need, if we give them equipment with the right tools and capabilities to do their jobs, if we take care about their needs and expectations, and drive that engagement and empower them, if we do what the customer needs and expects, then we're in a good place, and technology is there to help us with that. And obviously, it's always about leadership, right? We need to set the right direction and drive things forward in that direction. But it should always be guided by the business and the customer. So, huge opportunity, should excite all of us, and it's all about people.
Well, what a great note to end on. I think it's always exciting when I get to chat with you and get an update. I'm looking forward to the next time as well, because we'll be even further into this project. But in the meantime, thank you so much for this, Bart. This has been great.
You're welcome, Jeff, as always.
You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. I've been Jeff Mix. Let's do it again soon.